Osaa kännykätät siinä.
Sekä päälle.
Hello. Alright, so the ptarmigan. Remember the grass famine, like this other bird, which is Pennsylvania state bird, by the way. Ptarmigans are known for their rapid adaptation to the Arctic's harsh environment. The feathers can adapt to turn white in order to disguise themselves in the snow. These little guys constantly face the horrors of extremely low temperatures, scarce resources of food, and predators. Thus, ptarmigans prefer to live in the Arctic and subarctic regions like these. They don't seek out the thrill of migrating, which is why the feathers turn white in the winter. However, they do move around different regions of the Arctic in the spring for breeding season. So how did this bird survive and have time to adapt, despite having drawn a bad hand of cards? What are the ecological relationships with the rock ptarmigans in high alpine environments? And how do they respond to climate change? Well, I found a study that covers the different ptarmigan species and how they adapt to the environment. Here are the other species. Anyway, the research went over how deep ptarmigan's feet went into the snow because the snow stiffness varies in different regions. And in this study, they specifically went over to understand whether the regrowth of feathers on their feet aids them in the winter, and to determine if this adaptation is driven by the increased foot surface, which is a result from the feathering regrowth, and to understand the effectiveness of their snowshoe. Rock ptarmigans have a greater foot surface than any of the other three. An increased foot surface area from the regrowth of feathers reduces the foot track depth, which in return saves them energy when they're traveling. So in high alpine rocky mountains, when the rock ptarmigan's feathers regrow on their feet, it increases their foot surface area, which means their feet don't go that deep into snow. A snowshoe, essentially. Oh, and it's totally possible for them to form hybrids. So do what you want with that information.
Who's that Pokemon? It's
On another study, which was a 2-year case on rock ptarmigans in central Norway, in order to examine their survival rates, movement patterns, and the changes happening from global warming. The study would demonstrate data into the ecology and demographic of the rock ptarmigans in high alpine regions, offering valuable information for the conservation of the environment. The results were that the overall winter survival rate from February to July was an estimated 55%, which is low. It's basically a 50-50, suggesting that the rock ptarmigans in central Scandinavia face significant challenges during this period of time, which could be from a number of factors, but in the data, there was a lack of huge difference in survival rates between years, meaning that demographic factor didn't really apply here. Most birds would actually leave right before breeding season, indicating that there was a seasonal shift in habitat use, which in response to changes in the Arctic such as temperature drop and loss of snow. Essentially, the snow would melt quicker than it should, and the ptarmigans would be like confused. You're like, oh, what? Why is it melting? Oh, I guess it's time to go. So they left, and then making those who still have their snow cover on much more vulnerable. This map shows mostly where rock ptarmigans have been known to have been spotted. The red line is the border between Norway and Sweden, and the second map informs us that they like to live in high elevated places, preferably above the tree line. Straying away from ptarmigans into a more broader sense, on a study which focuses on the impact that climate change has on the terrain of the environment and how changing permafrost and snow conditions can impact the tundra wildlife. The study aimed to contribute valuable insights into the effects of environmental changes on tundra wildlife by evaluating the water phase transition and ecological dynamics in the tundra ecosystems. What was found was that the melting of both snow and ice can affect the herbivore population because of the thaw-induced collapse of structures used by wildlife for reproduction, and thermal erosion of ice wedges, which destabilizes structures which would ultimately collapse. So the thermal erosion of ice wedges, which would destroy the habitat availability for animals such as ducks and geese, and thaw-induced collapse of structures affects breeds, grounds for wildlife take this image into account. And fair warning, it is pretty sad, but it demonstrates two things. One, you should not build a nest on a steep cliff. Two, the thawing of permafrost has destructive impacts on these animals' habitats. Alright, so what are the ecological relationships with the rock ptarmigans in high alpine environments, and how are they responding to climate change? Well, in short, because I'm running out of time, when their feathers regrow, they expand in surface area, acting as a snowshoe. Two, they leave right before breeding season, indicating that there's a change in habitat. 3. The thawing of permafrost limits them from constructing nests and or places to raise their youth. Last thing before I leave, I kept saying rock so many times here. So here's Eye of the Ptarmigan.
Rising up, straight to the cold. Gotta fly, feeling hungry. Flew the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a bird and its will to survive. Ptarmigans fly with courage untold. Nothing in sight but all that snow. Don't lose your nest to the thawing of ice. They must fight just to keep your flock alive. It's the eye of the ptarmigan soaring high in the sky, rising up to the challenge of the tundra. And the heart of the ptarmigan cannot be controlled, and he's watching the snow with the eye of the ptarmigan.